Hello, YouTube world. It's me. I'm back and I am here to share a little bit about this Libra full moon. As you can see, well, first of all, I'm in a different setup, but I'm also not going to hold this up the whole time. I don't have my nice little fixture holding everything for me, as I am in a different location, but I definitely wanted to just have the chart posted so we can kind of look at it, and then I also took some notes on what I would like to share about this full moon. So first we see the moon in Libra, and it depends on where you are in the world, right, to know when the full culmination will happen for you. I am currently in Texas, and so it's showing full culmination for me April 1st, a little bit after 9 p.m. So, and what we see here, we see the Libra moon at 12 degrees of Libra, and it is opposing the Aries sun at 12 degrees. And so we see other things happening in the skies, but there's actually only one particular thing I want to talk about. Of course, we see Jupiter there in Cancer, squaring the moon, and we see a couple other transits that I'm probably not going to talk about. Okay, I'm going to put this down now. I just don't think I'm going to be able to, here I may have to, let's see, hang on a second. Okay, I'm back. I wasn't able to get it to come away from showing the screen, so I'm just going to combine this all together. But I wanted to definitely show the chart, and if you see me looking down, I will be referencing a little bit from the chart just based off of what I was thinking about this full moon. I actually don't want to share about a lot of the transits that are happening during this full moon because I'm trying to learn how to pick one major thing that I think is important to note when it comes to some of the transits that are happening, or the full moons and the new moons, and just to kind of get myself more, I think, more just out there with sharing about things. And because there are things that happen in transits that are happening, and I'm like, oh gosh, do I need to look at the whole thing? And or my mind works that way, at least, I want to look at every little thing that's going to be happening in the sky. And then sometimes I think that I am trying to learn how to just follow my most important promptings. Okay. So this full moon is, as we just looked at the chart, a Libra full moon, and it's going to be opposing Aries sun at 12 degrees. And for me, one of the major things that I am taking away from this, or I'm seeing with this full moon, is, and I took some notes. Let me see, can I grab my notebook here? Oh, I fell on the floor earlier, but I took some notes. I'm in a different setup, as you can see, but I took some notes, and I'm learning how to follow my deeper inner promptings on things, and making these videos and talking about astrology, the absolute love of my life. I think I really want to be able to share more authentically and more frequently. So one of the things I was thinking about this full moon is that it's being opposed by Saturn. And, depending on how you look at astrology. Some astrologers don't, consider an exact aspect if, it's not a tight one. But I think with the moon, the aspect I usually go up to about 13 degrees when I am talking about the moon, just because the moon, is one of the luminaries that I think we feel the most due to the activity of the moon. The moon is the fastest moving luminary, I guess I should say. And so I give it more of um, a further degree point to be making an aspect to another planet. And another thing that I was thinking about with this is just how, we haven't had Saturn in Aries in over 30 years. And just how, we are going to be having this aspect with between the moon opposing Saturn in Aries. And I just really wanted to share. I wanted to share some of the things that I thought about and some of the notes that I jotted down here. Yeah, that it's opposing this newly settled Saturn. Saturn was in Aries a little bit last year in 2025 before it went back into Pisces, and now in 2026 it will be in Saturn. It will be in Aries for I want to say up until 2028. So we have some time to go with Saturn in Aries. And so a full moon opposing Saturn. God, okay. I think we're going to really be able to feel all the feels. And some of the things I wrote down, some of the feelings that I feel like this full moon will bring out will be, setbacks, in your life, feeling of hindrances or just inactivity around your life, lack of growth, immobility, misfortune, feeling overlooked, or even depression, feeling dull, rejected, unlovable. I just really sat with some of these feelings of what it means when the moon is opposing a planet like Saturn. Saturn is a very heavy planet, and I think that, depending on how Saturn is arranged in your chart, or even if you have, I think, the greatest Saturn, you definitely feel and can feel the pressures of Saturn, especially if you have a night chart. And I think it's important to check in with yourself. I think it's important to understand that, this isn't going to be a transit that lasts forever. You can feel drained, you can feel ill or maybe even discomfort, this is when I thought I found myself feeling just cynical, and gloomy, kind of cut off from my emotions or just strict with my emotions, not really wanting to open up, not really wanting to give. You could really feel overpowered and just weighed down by obligations in your life. This is Saturn, the father of time, of, the great task master. And, we usually, when we're having anything to do with Saturn, we can just feel a lot of pressure. We can feel a lot of pressure from just the heaviness of having so much, it feels like, to do or to show up for, or, sometimes even Saturn and Aries, I think of how Aries is like the first sign in the zodiac, and it doesn't do so well in Aries. And, you know, you can really imagine, I mean, Aries is like the first sign of the zodiac. It's like a young sign. It wants to, take initiative and be the leader. And, you think of the kid of the zodiac, and Saturn is like the old wise sage, right? Of no, Aries, or, the first, you got to do this, you got to do that. This is going to take a lot of time. And you have all these tasks that you can just feel overpowered by, and just really weighed down, by. And so relationships with your family can feel that way. I feel like, especially if you're the youngest in the family, or maybe you're having a really difficult Saturn transit right now. I know my son is having Sun opposite Saturn right now. He's a early degree Libra sun. And, you know, I love that I know astrology, because I feel like I can understand some of the things he's going through in terms of feeling like he has to answer to all of these people, like all of these authority figures. He's only 14, and he's like, I got coaches I got to answer to. I have teachers, mom, I have you, I have, just all of these things in my life, to where, at the end of the day, I just want to be a kid. I just want to have that Aries, wild, go take charge and just do whatever I want to do energy, that independent energy. And yet, you can have all of these pressures and things that you have to do, you have to get done. And so I thought about that for this full moon. And, I work with a lot of young children, and it's very difficult to see, because a lot of these kids are around the ages of my kids, and they are having hard Saturn transits right now as teenagers. And, it can feel like a lot of responsibility. It made me start to think about, for myself, I oftentimes like to think of, okay, how can I relate to whatever my kid is going through, or what other people are going through. And I remember a time in my life when I went through transit Saturn opposing my sun. And um it was it was a hell of a time, and it has the power to really change your whole life, especially when I feel like it's a longer transit, like transit Saturn opposing your sun. And I just remember feeling like nothing that I did was good. In terms of relationships, it was awful. I really wanted to express myself and be this, I mean, your sun is your ego. It's your sense of self. It's your sense of identity and authenticity. But yet I felt, this pressure of, I'm just not there yet. Like, I had all of these lessons to learn in terms of what it looks like to have successful relationships in my life. And it was a really hard time. I had my first real job, and so that was really taxing on me. I was away from home for the first time ever, and that was really hard. And I was young, I was in my early 20s, and I just really wanted to be this young, vibrant, you think of Aries, just free to be me person. And yet there was a lot, so when you have transit Saturn opposing your natal sun, I think of how that's happening right now for Libras. You know, Libras, if you are a Libra, you are having this transit right now. And, you know, it could be a hard time. I wrote down some things. It could be a hard time, pressures of life, you know, feeling restrictions. I actually have a Libra friend, coworker actually, and you know, she's having this transit. Another day, she was talking to me about, I just feel like everything in my life I'm being turned down for. You know, whether it's jobs or I applied for this apartment that I really wanted. And, you know, she's also having like just finished up her Pluto opposition. So she's trying to go through a divorce, but even that she can't do. And she's just really in the dumps. And I think that, you know, opposing or Saturn opposing your natal sun transit can really feel just like a really tough time. I think of my Virgos out there. You know, Virgos just had this because Pisces was in Saturn. It went into Saturn in 2023. I believe it was March 2023. And it just officially left Saturn this year, you know, starting in at the end of February. You know, we could officially say that after retrogrades from, you know, Saturn going back into Aries and or going back into Pisces and then going into Aries, now we can officially say it is in Aries and it will be in Aries until 2028. But if you talk to a Virgo out there, I'm pretty sure they probably can give you some stories on what the past 3 years have felt like for them, especially when you date back from 2023 up until 2026 when it was completely done. And, you know, some things I wrote down, you know, your ego will be tested. let's just start there. You know, the sun is our ego. It's how we meet the world. It's how it's where we get our confidence, right? It's where we relate most to others around us, you know. And so the sun is the most important luminary in the solar system. You know, all the planets revolve around the sun. The sun is our light, you know. So when you have a planet like Saturn, you know, a heavy duty time tasking sign opposing you, you know, it can really feel like you're in the dumps. You know, you don't want Saturn as your opponent. You know, some people actually have this as a natal signature. And I think you know, they are probably some pretty tough people, you know, because Saturn opposing your sun is, you know, it will really make you into a tough person. So, you know, it can depend on what time and what season of life you're in. You know, you know, your life can feel like there's just this authority that's just hovering over you, right? And it's against you, it's opposing you. You know, bosses, you know, I think of teachers, bosses, jobs, like depending on what season you are in your life. For my son, as I shared, it's school, you know, it's being a kid, it's being a teenager. But as we get older and we have this happening, you know, it's our bosses oftentimes. Sometimes it can feel like our partners. It just really depends. Or government, you know, things dealing with the government, just authorities. You know, you can have run-ins with, I don't know, maybe like cops or just, you know, like, man, I got a parking ticket or I just can't win, or, you know, it can really feel that way. You have a hard time feeling affirmed. I will say that. It's crucial to understand this, though, okay? Saturn is trying to prepare you, okay? Perhaps for a long road ahead. Maybe you need this opposition to make you stronger, to make you tougher. Maybe you need this opposition because it's part of your fate. It's part of your destiny to be tested in this way so that, who knows? I look at Saturn as a very legacy building planet, Um, and sometimes, it's not only for you, but it could be for the generations to come after you. Your children and your children's children, can benefit from you really hanging in there with this difficult transit. Perhaps you need to learn how to truly build real, authentic relationships with others before you're ready for a deep connection. I know I learned that in my early 20s, and it led me into a lot of other karmic things in my life that really put me on a path of having to do the work of Saturn and understanding Saturn in my own life. Maybe you need training before you're ready to take on this full task that your dream life require. Some people are like, why can't I just have this so I can have that, and they are having Sun Saturn, or they have all of these issues with Saturn, Moon Saturn, and they realize, somewhere, maybe I needed this to become more of a responsible person, living this dream life, or I just would have went and squandered it all, Maybe you need more time around your children before you're ready to be a parent. I know there are people who have said, gosh, I really want to have kids, and it just seems like I'm not able to, or it's taken forever. And, it's hard, and they have a really tough Saturn transit coming through. And it's nice to be able to counsel people to see, maybe Saturn knows that having a child is a lot of work. It changes your whole life. And maybe being around other parents, spending more time with children, working with kids. Saturn knows you need this to help you be ready for the role of being a successful parent. So if we commit to Saturn, okay, we can achieve or have a deeper realization. We can also learn that something that we thought we wanted could be potentially harmful for us. We just have to remember that Saturn is the old sage after all. And what is hard for us right now, even with this full moon opposing Saturn, I think, I think of the moon and I think of that feminine energy, it's dealing with the women in our life, right? It's dealing with our mothers and our daughters and our sisters and our spouses, and I think that it's important that we learn what it is that Saturn wants us to see in these relationships, with this full moon. What is this moon ushering in that we need to let go of? Maybe it's an image around what it means to have a relationship with someone significant in your life, whether that's your mother or even with yourself, if you're a woman, or, for the men out there, for the wives in your life or your daughters. But it is important for us to evaluate these things, to take that time to say, am I holding on to ideas that are you know, that I need to give up. I need to release. I need to let go of in order to really experience what it means to have this relationship in my life. So, yeah, I wanted to share that here, and hopefully you can get something from this. If anything, please just don't give up. If it's a difficult time for you right now, hang in there and hold on, And I know it can be hard to just keep sometimes doing the same task over and over again, and you're wondering, like, am I getting anywhere? I know I've definitely felt that with this full moon and the energy around this full moon opposing Saturn. But just know that, Saturn is there to take us somewhere, regardless. It is the wise teacher. It's the sage. And so lean in to this full moon, lean into Saturn, commit to Saturn and the journey that you are on. So thank you for watching this video. If you have stayed this long, and I just wish you many blessings and hopefulness throughout the season. And I will be back with a new video. I like this kind of just impromptu, off the cuff recording and not being in my natural habitat, I guess I should say. So, peace and blessings.